All right, so we have the barrel bars established. I have them established on the forearm iron also. I've taken that off for now. What we need to do is start establishing the beaded fence that goes all the way up and around the receiver, and it'll terminate at the top of the receiver, and it'll kind of fade into the barrels. But what we're going to end up doing is we'll have to reshape the top of the receiver, because we want, when we're holding the receiver like this, we want it to be symmetrical coming up and then coming back down. That's what I've done with this other receiver. I've made it symmetrical on both sides, so it comes up, comes back down. It's symmetrical on both sides when you've got it angled like this, and it's supposed to be even on both sides with the way the receiver is shaped. With this receiver, it's got a really nice round coming up, but on this side, it's really flat right in here. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to shape this part, and then I may weld some back here. I may not weld some, I don't know yet. I'll start taking off from this side until it all rounds out. And if I see it's not going to round out, then I'll have to add material on here. But for right now, all we're going to do is establish from here all the way up to the center. We're going to try to get a bead that is this same size and height all the way up to here. So that's what we're doing right now. So what we're going to have is a barrel band that's going to come all the way up around. We want it to be the same width up here and the same height up here as it is here on the barrels and as it is in the front on the forearm. So what I've got, just a rough measurement, we're at 70 thousandths for width, and for height we're at 40 thousandths. I've tried before laying it all out and figuring out heights and all that. What I found, it's easier, grab a file and just start filing on it. So all I'm going to do is just start here at this height, and I'm going to start moving in and coming up and around the corner. And that's not a safe edge file. All I'm doing is just starting to cut. I'm just coming up and around, just trying to establish this. Right now I don't care about the height, I don't care about the width, I'm just trying to get a flat established so I can start working to those dimensions that the barrel bars are at. So you can see as I go around, all I'm doing is just establishing the beaded fence all the way up the receiver. We're going to do a little bit of checking, see where I'm at, where I need to go. I know I need about 70 thousandths in width, so all I'm going to do is a little bit of measurement. I'm only at about 40 thousandths there. I'm about 70 thousandths up top, so I need to come in a little bit more around this side just to get close. There's a lot of adjusting when you're doing these, where you kind of play around with the symmetry and play around with the arc and all of that, and there's no real mathematical way of doing it. I don't like trying to lay it out, because you're trying to lay out a flat line on a curved surface. So I just kind of play around with what what looks good on everything. So now that I've got all of this established all the way around, it's all fairly much the same measurement. It's the measurements that I want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on rounding this surface over. So I want it to be an even round from here all the way up to the top of the barrels. So all of this square edge that I've created, it's going to be rounded, and then on the inside of our bead, it's not just going to be flat, it's going to be cut in just like these barrels. So it's going to look like that all the way up and around, and that's a whole lot of work with little tiny files and chisels. So we're going to start rounding it out, and of course there's going to be a whole lot of rounding happening as we're chiseling the bead thing. So I've established this flat all the way along here. Now what I need to do is work on the top of the receiver to establish the bead that comes all the way across. What I've found is easiest is if I start working on the rib extension. So we have a rib extension that comes into the receiver, and I call this the pedal. So what I usually do is just follow this line all the way around, and what I'm doing is lowering this whole surface down to almost the barrels. I want to keep the same width as the rib. I lower it down almost to the barrels, and I'm leaving just enough so when my bead comes up, it ends right around in here. So I take a file and I just start establishing this pedal. And this is one of the parts that seems to take the longest because there's a whole lot of metal that needs to come off. Alright, so right now all I'm doing is establishing the back side of the pedal, the rib extension pedal, so it makes it a little bit easier as I come around and actually start shaping the right side of it. Started to get the symmetry that I want. I'm going to move this top of the bead in some, and I'm going to thin it all out because it tapers down to nothing right here. It doesn't go into the barrels, it tapers down to nothing. So I'm going to remove some more material up top and establish the end point, and then I can start working on the symmetry more. So we've got the top established. We're really close on symmetry, but the way that I check symmetry, and symmetry is something that you can spend hours and hours staring at. The way I check symmetry is that I will take a Sharpie and color in what I would call the baseline, not the beaded fence. I'll just color in the back of everything so it gets rid of that shiny background, because right now everything's shiny. It makes it hard to see where all the material is. And I'll shade in all that, and then I'll look at the back line of the beaded fence and I'll check for symmetry there. I want to see that it's coming up. This is my highest point right here at the angle, right here. I'll check to see if this curve looks the same as this curve. And then if both those curves look the same, what I'll do is I'll color in the fence, the beaded fence, and I'll see that it looks the same from here to here as it does to here. I want to see that everything blends together and is a symmetrical curve all the way up and all the way down. And then once I get all of that symmetrical, I'll work on rounding all the receiver out here. I'll work on rounding over this edge, and I'll work on taking a chisel, or this time an engraver, and cutting in and actually establishing the bead. And once all that's done on this side, I get to do the other side and make sure everything's symmetrical. And then once both sides are good, I'll go and I'll check to make sure from here to here is the same as here to here. So there's symmetry on both sides and across the two. So there's a lot of symmetry. I'm not going to show you shaping this one because it looks the same as shaping this one. So, but that's how I shape fences. It's a slow process, and symmetry is everything.